Whoa, look at that ride. Heads turned instantly in the school parking lot as a sleek black luxury car rolled across the pavement like it owned the place. The engine purred, not too loud, not too soft, just the kind of sound that made everyone stop mid-step. Phones came out of pockets, sneakers squeaked to a halt, and students gathered as if a celebrity had arrived. The door opened slowly, and out stepped Maya. She moved with quiet confidence, her chin held high, though her eyes scanned the unfamiliar crowd. Her skin glowed warmly under the morning sun, and her long braids swayed across her shoulder as she adjusted her backpack. She didn't wear flashy clothes, just jeans and a clean white hoodie, but somehow she carried herself like she belonged anywhere she walked. But the stares weren't about Maya. They were about the car. This wasn't just a nice car. This was the car. A limited edition, handcrafted luxury beast that most adults only ever saw on magazine covers or YouTube videos about dream rides. The glossy black paint gleamed like liquid ink, and the custom chrome rims sparkled like diamonds. Everyone knew that car cost more than some of their parents' houses. Whispers buzzed through the crowd. Is she rich? She can't be. Not here. That car costs more than my mom makes in 10 years. Instead of admiration, suspicion brewed. At Lincoln High, being different made you a target. And Maya's quiet confidence, paired with that jaw-dropping car, painted a bullseye on her back. She doesn't belong here, a girl muttered under her breath. She's showing off, another scoffed, rolling her eyes. And then came the boys, the ones who ruled the hallways, the ones who thought everyone else was beneath them. Tyler and his crew. They leaned against their flashy cars at the far end of the lot, watching with sneers that almost dripped jealousy. Tyler himself drove a red sports car his daddy had bought him for his 16th birthday. Normally, he loved the attention it gave him. But today, compared to Maya's machine, his ride looked like a toy. His jaw tightened as laughter rippled through his friends. New girl thinks she's better than us, Tyler muttered, glaring at the black beauty now parked in his territory. Maya, unaware of the storm brewing, simply slung her backpack over one shoulder and walked toward the school building. She didn't make eye contact, didn't smile, didn't flinch at the whispers. But Tyler's eyes followed her. His pride burned. His friends smirked, already sensing what was coming. For Maya, this was just her first morning at a new school. But for Tyler, it was war. And he had already made up his mind. By the end of the day, that car wouldn't belong to her anymore. Tyler couldn't focus on a single class. His mind spun in circles around that car, around the smug calmness of the girl who had walked out of it like it was no big deal. His friends kept whispering during math, grinning at him, egging him on. Bro, you gonna let her show you up like that? One of them whispered. She's making you look broke, another snickered. Tyler slammed his pencil down, his knuckles widening. He wasn't used to being second best. At Lincoln High, he was the king. No one upstaged him. No one dared. By lunchtime, the plan was already forming in his mind. They sat in the cafeteria, huddled around him like generals in a war council. Tyler leaned forward, lowering his voice. She wants to roll up in here acting all high and mighty? Fine. Let's take her crown. Tonight, that car is ours. His friend's eyes widened, then lit up with excitement. They were used to dumb stunts, spray painting lockers, pulling fire alarms, racing cars down the strip. But this was next level. You serious? One asked, half in awe, half nervous. Tyler smirked. Dead serious. Imagine the look on her face when she walks out after school and sees nothing there. And when she checks Instagram. Boom, videos of us cruising in her little princess car. The boys erupted in laughter. One of them, Justin, leaned back and said, Bro, she'll transfer out after that. Nobody comes back from that kind of humiliation. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Tyler and his crew slipped out to the parking lot. They circled Maya's car like vultures. Tyler had come prepared. He'd watched tutorials online, learned about bypassing locks and ignition systems. Of course, he wasn't a pro, but this wasn't just any car. It was too tempting. Man, you sure this is gonna work? Justin asked nervously. Relax, Tyler said confidently, holding up a small black device. She's not the only one who can flex. Watch and learn. With a few tries and some shaky laughter, the doors clicked open. The boys hooped like they'd just discovered buried treasure. Sliding into the leather seats, Tyler inhaled deeply. Smell that? Smells like money. He pushed a button, and the engine roared to life. The sound vibrated in their bones, deeper, stronger than any car they had ever sat in. They pulled out of the lot, tires screeching. Students gasped, some cheering, others recording on their phones. Within seconds, Maya's car disappeared down the street, swallowed by the roar of the engine. Tyler grinned into the camera as his friend filmed. "Thanks for the ride, new girl," he laughed, flipping the bird at the lens. To them, it was just a prank. A flex. A way to knock Maya down a peg. What they didn't know was that Maya's car wasn't just expensive, it was nearly untouchable. Because her father hadn't just bought her a car. He had armored her life with technology, security, and eyes that never slept. And the moment Tyler hit the gas, those eyes had already spotted him. The sun was dipping lower when students began streaming out of the building. Maya walked calmly toward the parking lot, her bag slung over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. But when she reached her spot, the crowd had already gathered. The sleek black car was gone. Snickers spread like wildfire. "Yo, where's your fancy ride? Guess it didn't like you and left. Hope you kept your bus pass." A girl laughed cruelly. "Welcome to Lincoln High, princess. Maybe next time, don't rub your money in our faces." Maya didn't answer. She didn't even frown. She simply looked at the empty space, her gaze lingering for a moment longer than most thought possible. It was as if she was waiting. Then, with the same calm she had carried all day, she reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and dialed. "Dad," she said softly when the call connected. It happened. The crowd quieted slightly, confused. Who was she calling? Why wasn't she panicking? If their cars had been stolen, they would have been in tears, shouting, running to the office. But Maya? Her voice stayed steady, almost too steady. "Yeah," she continued, glancing at the lot. "They took it. I'll wait here." She hung up without another word. Students exchanged puzzled looks. "Who just says it happened when their car gets stolen?" One boy whispered. "She's weird," another muttered. "She's faking," someone else added. Minutes later, a sleek black SUV rolled into the parking lot. The windows were tinted, the body spotless, and when the driver stepped out, the air shifted. He wasn't a teenager. He wasn't a teacher. He was a professional. His suit was crisp, his expression stone cold. Without saying a word, he opened the door for Maya. She climbed in, still calm, while the driver's sharp eyes scanned the crowd. The students murmured nervously, realizing this wasn't just some Uber or taxi. "Who is she?" someone whispered. The SUV pulled away smoothly, leaving behind a silence thick with unease. The crowd didn't know it yet, but the man in that car wasn't just her driver. He was her father's head of security, trained, loyal, and already coordinating with the trackers embedded deep within the stolen car. Maya leaned back against the seat, her expression unreadable. She didn't need to cry, didn't need to shout. She knew exactly what was coming. And soon, so would the boys. Tyler and his crew were living it up. They sped down the highway, blasting music, laughing so loud they drowned out the roar of the engine. Phones were out, cameras rolling, every second documented for likes and clout. "Yo, this car is insane," Justin shouted from the passenger seat, recording the speedometer. "Look at this thing go." Tyler grinned, sunglasses perched on his nose. "Say hello to my new baby." He revved the engine, weaving between lanes like he owned the road. They mocked Maya in their videos, calling her names, laughing about how she'd be crying right now. Tyler pictured her standing in the parking lot, humiliated, powerless. The thought fueled his ego. But then it happened. The car jolted slightly, then began to slow down, not because Tyler lifted his foot, but because something else was controlling it. "What the?" He slammed the gas pedal, but the car refused to respond. The dashboard lit up with a glowing red message. "Vehicle locked. Authorities notified." Panic rippled through the car. "Bro, what's happening? Why isn't it moving?" "Dude, fix it." The steering wheel stiffened. The doors clicked. And then, with a final mechanical hum, the car rolled to a controlled stop on the shoulder of the highway. Red and blue lights flashed behind them almost immediately. Sirens wailed as multiple police cars boxed them in. "No, no, no, this isn't happening," Tyler muttered, his bravado shattering. The cops swarmed, yanking open the locked doors. The boys were dragged out, their phones confiscated, their protests falling on deaf ears. It was a prank, Tyler shouted desperately. "We weren't stealing it. We were just borrowing it." The officer's hard stare silenced him. "You think Grand Theft Auto is a joke, son? Tyler's stomach dropped. The more he tried to explain, the worse it sounded. Stealing a sandwich might be a prank. Stealing a luxury vehicle worth millions? That was prison talk. Even the cops looked tense when they ran the plates. One officer muttered under his breath, shaking his head. This wasn't just a car. It belonged to someone powerful. And now, these boys had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Tyler felt his world collapse as he was shoved into the back of a police cruiser, the flashing lights blinding him. For the first time, he wasn't laughing. The next morning, Lincoln High buzzed like a beehive. Whispers flew through hallways. Texts flooded group chats. Did you hear? Tyler and the guys got arrested. My cousin said they're facing charges. Dude, their parents are furious. But the real shock wasn't just their punishment. It was who the car belonged to. Late morning, as students crowded near the entrance, a long black limousine rolled up. The tinted windows reflected the sun like a mirror, and when the door opened, Maya stepped out. But she wasn't alone. A tall man in a sharp navy suit followed her. His presence was commanding, the kind that made people instinctively move aside. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Wait, is that? No way. It was Richard Lawson, billionaire entrepreneur, owner of Lawson Enterprises, one of the biggest companies in the country. A man whose face had been on Forbes covers, on magazine spreads, on TV interviews about wealth and power. And here he was, standing in front of their school. Richard spoke briefly with the principal, his voice calm but firm, while Maya stood beside him, her posture steady, her expression unreadable. Finally, Richard turned to the students who had gathered, his voice carrying effortlessly. My daughter came here hoping for a normal school life, he said. Instead, she was targeted, mocked, and humiliated, not because of who she is, but because of envy and cruelty. Let this be a lesson for everyone watching. Money doesn't make you better than anyone else. But cruelty? Cruelty makes you less. The crowd fell silent. Not even the teachers dared to breathe too loud. Richard placed a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone. She doesn't need to fight back with anger. The truth speaks for itself. Maya finally looked around, her quiet gaze sweeping the crowd. She didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She simply walked past them, each step measured, each silence heavier than words. Tyler and his friends weren't at school. They were suspended, facing charges, their reputations shattered. No one would look at them the same again. And Maya? She slipped back into her car, the very one they had tried to steal, and closed the door with quiet dignity. Because sometimes, the strongest power isn't revenge. It's silence, and letting the truth do all the talking.